Alright, so here we are for Spa, and we're actually getting a sprint weekend. I don't remember if it was a sprint weekend last season, but we are getting a sprint weekend. And,
We're
yeah.
going to be logging some extra data during this session. Nothing you need to worry about, but as we have some new parts on the car, we'll just confirm they're performing to spec.
And we also updated our tire compound for the weekend to get those hard and medium tire compounds on our information. And a quick update before we head out, we are, Valtteri Bottas is going to be retiring at the end of the season, so that's going to free up a spot for Alpine and for some people to move around. So we'll have to see how that goes at the end of the season. But without further ado, like always, we're going to go ahead and knock out practice and do qualifying, and we'll see you guys for qualifying, sprint, and the main event. All right, we are here in Spa for our next sprint weekend. 148.1 on the hards, 146.8 on the mediums. Coming around the bus stop chicane here to see what our provisional time here is in Q1. That's 144.8 for provisional pole. That's going to be good enough to get us into Q2 with no worry. We have a house behind us there as we're coming around the bus stop chicane. And we could have taken that exit a little bit better as we come over the curb. It's going to be 145.078. No improvement compared to Q1. But we're moving on to our final run of Q2. And I'm feeling a lot better about this. We've got about a second difference in time. 1.2 there as we take that left-hander, and yet again, feeling a lot more confident coming out of that corner. But we do drop about 2 tenths or so. But that is good enough for provisional P3 into Q3. So improvement there. First run of Q3. See Max Verstappen there to 143.4. And very good launch out of the corner, I felt like. But that's going to be good enough for P8 as of right now, 144.5. And our final run of Q3 here, you see everybody going into the pits as we have about 5 minutes to go. Final changes for the pits. So we come across the line with a 143.9. That's going to be good enough for P4.
We're all ready for tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look at those who'll be fronting the grid. Verstappen, Leclerc and Sergio Perez. With qualifying complete, all that remains now is the main event. We'll be live and uninterrupted for the Grand Prix tomorrow, so make sure you join us then.
All right, so feeling pretty confident after that qualifying. We did our normal, well, I didn't really do it. I did it last season where I would run a set of tires, and then I would run that same set of tires, those scrub tires, in the next qualifying session if I made it. And we did very well. We had a set of soft tires for Q2 that we used for Q3, and second row start for the sprint. Let's see if we can stay around that area for the sprint, and see if we can try to save a set of soft tires for the main event. That way we can do a soft to medium or a medium to soft run for the main event. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right to the sprint race.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Perez, Johnson, Sainz, Hamilton, Norris, Russell, Bottas, Oscar Piastri, Ocon, Gasly, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Jackson, Joe, Mick Schumacher, Sargent and Callie Mayer. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out. Here we go then, the formation lap is underway ahead of today's sprint. almost ready to start the sprint as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
All right, so we are here coming up to the final grid, slotting in behind the Red Bull, I believe. No, we're side by side with the Red Bull. By the looks of it, on our soft compound tires, we went with the soft compound behind the Ferrari. The two Red Bulls splitting 1 and 3. And yeah, it's the Mercedes behind us, so we're feeling really good about this start here for the sprint race. But we have a lot of wear and tear coming in on our car. I believe 2 parts. One of them is up towards 80%. You guys saw in qualifying. That's going to be for our heat unit. Our 5 red lights are on, and they are off. We're off to a decent start. The Red Bull of Sergio Perez ahead of us. The Ferrari not so good. Not very much movement. There's the Mercedes moves to the inside, and we give them a little space. So we try to put the power down as best as possible on Leclerc, but we have a little bit of contact on Perez. And coming up towards the Rouge, and then Rodillion. I think that's how you say it, Rodillion. Radalon. And yeah, so it's still sitting in P4. We have Hamilton in our tow. And feeling pretty good. A 5-lap sprint. You see Hamilton there on the mirror on the right side. He backs off as we hit the brakes late. And yeah, so these soft tires, we didn't run these soft tires only in qualifying. We didn't really get to relax on these soft tires for a race pace, but it's the best we can do on a sprint weekend. But yeah, so first lap coming through pretty well so far. Staying within tow of the driver ahead of us. That's Charles Leclerc there in P3. Teammate Mick Schumacher back in P19. But yeah, so at this point of the race, I figured as long as I hit my points, it's smooth sailing, but we miss our braking point there. And that closes the gap between myself and Hamilton, and ruining that corner there as well. Which leaves Hamilton within our tow trying to make a move. You can see him snapping left and right behind us as we're at such a high speed. And we managed to fend him off here for the majority of lap 1. But coming up to the bus stop chicane again, we have a decent launch out of the corner. See us coming around to the main straight. And yeah, so Sainz manages to pass Hamilton on lap 4, and we're coming up to Rouge and Rodillion again. Radalon. Sorry, I'm butchering it, I know. And we didn't have that good of a incline there. As you can see, Sainz easily able to overtake us on the mediums because he was close enough with that toe. And having that bonus DRS. You can see Hamilton still there on the inside. A little bit of tire contact there as we're on the inside of the next turn. And a little bit of a slip up there. Another little bit of contact from Hamilton. Or onto Hamilton, so we're still trying to fend him off here on lap 4 of 5 of the sprint. We go wide, missing our braking point, but we do manage to hold it off for now, up until that late turn. So we went too far over the curb, no warning or so. But yeah, so currently sitting P6 now. But on lap 5, we're pushing this car to its limits. You see George Russell there behind us as he's trying to push. We missed that braking point again. Russell takes advantage of that. We almost come in contact there as we're coming out of the Stavelot, and we just slam into the wall. You see our back tire just, oh, I regretted this so much. I was pushing the car a little bit too hard. Don't know what that slide was. There's going to be, I believe, Piastri or Lando Norris there behind us as we go wide. Didn't let off early enough for that, so that's going to be the end of our sprint race. We're going to be starting from the back of the grid for the main event.
And now let's take a look at the driver's standings. Max Verstappen should be pleased with his performance, making gains at the top of the table. With the sprint wrapped up, we now have our grid lineup for the big race tomorrow. Be sure to join us then for what will no doubt be a fantastic race.
All right, so an abrupt end to our sprint race as we were trying to keep up with Lewis Hamilton. And our back end just went out on us, caught the gravel, and slamming into the wall. So, yeah, we'll have to keep our eye on that. for the main event. I'm very worried coming into this main event because our ICE is in the high 70s, so hopefully we don't get a DNF for the main race. So we will see you guys for the main event.
Welcome to this visit to the Ardennes countryside. Spa-Francorchamps hosted its first Grand Prix back in 1925, and this historic track is loved by drivers and fans alike, and us here in the commentary box too. So it's a warm welcome from the Belgian Grand Prix. Spa-Francorchamps then, a historic 19-corner circuit with a lap distance of 4.35 miles. There's over 100 meters of elevation change here, and with long stretches of the lap spent flat out, a good top speed will be vital for success. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. Sergio Perez lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Russell, Oscar Piastri, Gasly, Bottas, Norris, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Joe, Jackson, Mick Schumacher, Sargent, Mayer, and Johnson. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
Well, I imagine they'll be starting to feel the adrenaline as they anticipate the rundown into turn 1, a bit like preparing to go into battle. The unknown situation will bring nerves, but that's a good thing. It will keep them focused on the moment and on their surroundings as we build towards the start of the Grand Prix.
All right, so an unfortunate ending there to our sprint race. We're having to start from the back of the pack. We're gonna have to go ahead and take a look at our strategy and see what we can do. If we do a short run on those hards like we did in the last race, or like we saw what Max did in the last race, we might be able to do something like that. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and go with the default strategy. I don't think it's much difference, not at all. And drop the fuel load and get right to the race.
Here we go then, the formation lap gets underway and the excitement here is building as we near ever closer to the start of the race. Which team will come out on top? Who's got their strategies right for today's race? Well, we'll soon find out. So as all the cars reform the grids, the drivers will be hoping to get a strong start. They'll want to earn some valuable points from today's race, with final communications being done with their race engineers, ensuring the planned strategies are all in place.
All right, so we have a slow roll in there to the start. A little bit of texture issues, frame rate issues, and you guys will see it here and there throughout the race, but we did manage to get it fixed. I'm just trying to update settings, that way you guys can actually see the race as best as possible. But anyways, we're starting back in P20 alongside Callie Mayer. Our 5 reds lights are on and we are off. A little bit of a late start there, but Logan Sargent ahead of us is the same. Callie Mayer on the mediums actually to a good start here. And we're giving the space on the inside because I don't want to cause any damage with Jackson up there, as we're side by side with Callie Mayer coming through turn 1. And we're coming up the hill to Eau Rouge, or I forgot how to say it already. Eau Rouge and Radillon. I am butchering that. I need to stop. I need to stop saying that. But a little bit of a 4-car tow here as we're back to the pack. Schumacher all the way up ahead of us. Already a second between us and Schumacher, our teammate here on lap 1. We could have had a better entrance into Eau Rouge. I need to look. I really need to look that up. I will look that up after this video. And yeah, so we managed to use our braking late tactics. A little bit of a spin there. We did manage to hold. We're going to be going from the hards to, I believe, mediums here for the main event, as we're coming around the turn 10, turn 11. So going a lot better, but turn 12 and turn 13, I have a lot of trouble with these guys, as we're coming through Stavelot once again. And on the first lap, compared to the last lap of the sprint, I made sure not to make that same mistake and let out the gas a little bit earlier than usual. And I already knew to take care of my tires and know that the tire wear would come in handy when it comes to that. So we had to be very precautious about that. But not much of an improvement here on lap 1. We're up in the P17. Sargent behind us, Callie Mayer P19, and Joe in P20. Moving on to pretty much the only other piece of action, the end of lap 2, is when we have enough pace here to catch up to Schumacher. The Sargent here pretty close behind us too, and we use a main straight to our advantage to brake late as possible and go side by side with Schumacher, so our teammate, and could have really had a better camera angle there. And we had a double pass attempt here. We're side by side with Jackson, even though he's on the soft tires, he doesn't have that much of a pace compared to us, but he's able to stay within us. We're side by side coming through Eau Rouge in the Radalon, and you can see in the mirrors, Jackson on the left, Schumacher on the right. We're 3 wide coming down the Camel straight into turn 5. We break the latest out of all of them, and we managed to maintain P15, that double overtake on lap 3 after coming up the hill. And yeah, so Sonoda up in P14 is the next step for us to try to pass, knowing that we have a lot better pace than everybody else here in the back of the pack. Lap 4, the next lap, same area. Jackson and Schumacher still fighting for position. We're slightly ahead of them, but we can see Sonoda is off the track. He made a mistake, so that's going to be a free position for us up in a P14. Now, 2.1 seconds separate myself and Magnussen. 1.9 there. You can see him ahead, fighting with Piastri and Ocon. I believe that's it for them. But we're 1.7 seconds back behind them. And yeah, lap 5, we're right up behind Piastri. So Piastri was overtaken by Magnussen, and I don't quite remember where he was in the grid at the time, but we pass him on the outside. We brake late, making sure not to come in contact with Magnussen, and using the outside lane here in turn 1 to keep that momentum against Magnussen. And we're going to be side by side with Magnussen going up Eau Rouge like we did Jackson a few laps ago. And way better exit coming up the hill. And Magnussen and Piastri are looking to catch up to us, but not quite. We have the momentum coming up all the way up the hill. Some of those turns, if I time it right, you could literally flat out going up turn 2, 3, and 4. But yeah, P12 on lap 6 as we're coming into the pits on the end of lap 6. See Verstappen back down to P9. I believe he's pitting at this time, and we have Piastri coming in behind us. So, the start of the pits, I believe we're the first ones to come in for the pits. So, myself, Piastri, and Verstappen, the only 3 coming in on lap 6, the start of lap 7 for their pit stops. We're going to be swapping over to the mediums. And no problem there. So, we're going to be ahead of Piastri. He's not too far behind us. We see Callie Mayer there behind us as well. His teammate Aiden Jackson up there in P13. And nowhere to fight, no one to fight here as we're coming out onto the main turn 1 straight. But the end of lap 7 is where we see more pit stops. We see Magnussen, Ocon moving positions there. And yeah, so myself, Piastri, and Ocon actually coming out of the pits. I thought we had the momentum to pass him, but we sit on the outside, giving him some space. And we're tailing him coming up turn 2, 3, and 4. So we give him that space. You can see the shaking there left and right, as we basically just left Piastri being in the toe of Esteban Ocon. You can see we take that left side for the inside of this turn, turn 6, and you guys heard the redlining of the car. That's basically the only place the car is redlining in this track. So, lap 8, Piastri back in 15th with Ocon between us. And now we're waiting for some more action. So right now we have to defend against Esteban Ocon. But at the end of this lap, we have some more people coming out of the pit stops. See Hulkenberg and Sargent moving their positions there. Hamilton staying out. So Russell, I believe, if not Hamilton, one of those guys, if not both of them, are coming into the pits. But we're up in the P10 with those pit stops now, and we're going to see who we coming out next to. Hulkenberg is there on the exit, and we have the momentum to stay ahead. So we're back up in the P10. We are up into the points. Hamilton and Russell, they're up P4 and P5, so I thought they were coming out of the pits, but they were just fighting for position. Lap 13 now, Hulkenberg and the Alfa Romeo has finally able to catch up to us and get into our tow for these last few laps. So I'm pretty much fighting to stay within the points here in Spa. As you can see, he's trying to make a move there in the mirror, but he backs off and we come through the bus stop chicane. 10 seconds between us and Norris. I don't think we have enough time to try and catch up to him. Esteban Ocon had an engine failure a few laps ago. Nothing too important to showcase here, but we're wrapping up the end of the race here. Lap 14, Hulkenberg is within tow here, and we're defending the whole time as we come around the bus stop chicane one last time on the end of lap 15, coming in P10, or at least 1 point here in Spa.
Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
Victory for the team from Milton Keynes then, after a quality performance. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everybody at the team. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Max Verstappen should be pleased with his performance, making gains at the top of the table. Some amazing talent out on the track today. But Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
Max Verstappen seemed to just effortlessly weave through the other drivers today without a care in the world. He was definitely my driver of choice.
Let's move on to the constructors. And pulling further ahead in the standings, it's Red Bull. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
All right, so yeah, we pushed the car pretty hard, and we managed to make up 10 places, so good enough for 1 point for our standings. Mick moving up to P14 from P17, and Esteban Ocon there in the late parts of the race, getting a DNF engine failure. But yeah, some pretty close racing, and I felt like I had a lot of pace compared to where we could have been. I felt like it was better to gain positions rather than lose them, as we did in the sprint race. But yeah, with a decent pace, the fastest of the 147s for best lap times. Sergio Perez there with the fastest lap. We're looking forward to the next race, hopefully, and see if we can still put a cut into the standings for driver standings. Lando Norris up there at 122 now, so we're not too far back behind him for P7. He's right there in the fight with both Ferraris for driver standings and constructor standings. Red Bull pulling away from Mercedes, And Max Verstappen, I believe, is on 5 race wins now, as he is also pulling away from George Russell, the previous season winner. So we'll have to wait and see. Sergio Perez getting close to be passed by Charles Leclerc. That's not looking good for him, as there may be words of Daniel Ricciardo replacing Sergio Perez. And the word on the street is that Valtteri Bottas is retiring. So once again, we'll have to see who may be a potential replacement for Valtteri Bottas on the grid as we wrap up the weekend. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next episode.